A special vigil held for Harambe, who was nicknamed
Bank of America, Bad for America.
Hey guys, so this will be a segment from our full video on the new genres of the 2010s. If you want to see more, there will be a link in the description. Cheers. It's late 2010, and a strange album is making the rounds on music message boards. The album, which looks more like an old Sega box than an LP, contains weird slowed-down looped versions of 80s pop songs. It's clever, amusing, and also a bit frightening. And meanwhile, another album starts making the rounds, with an equally strange cover. This one consists entirely of cheap MIDI-sounding music, like the music you hear on hold with your cable company. Except it could be quite unpredictable and chaotic. Together, these two records would become the founding documents of a genre known as Vaporwave. Vaporwave may not always be the most serious musical genre, but the impact it's had on the music and visual aesthetics of the 2010s was pretty profound. So let's go back to those two records. They were created by these two men, Daniel Lopatin, aka Oneohtrix Point Never, and James Ferraro. Both were electronic musicians who dabbled in the aforementioned genre of hypnagogic pop. But in these instances, they were basically just goofing around on the side. For Lopatin, it was about taking pop songs that have become so overplayed at shopping malls or waiting rooms. They've become a sort of mass cultural background music.
So I'm always searching for the juiciest moment in a pop track to sample and then sort of strip away, pull away, deconstruct, and kind of swathe in echo and get into this hypnotic state with it.
For Ferraro, the initial idea was to release an album entirely of ringtones, highly compressed digital MIDI sounds that had also become a sort of cultural background music. Both of these albums may very well have disappeared back into the internet void they came from, but for some reason, they struck a chord. For one, it was actually quite cathartic to hear corporate music turned into something more absurd and personal. Hearing Toto's Africa slowed down and chopped up kind of felt like an act of rebellion. But more than that, it turns out that these records tapped into a feeling of nostalgia that a lot of people didn't even realize they had. Not nostalgia for an earlier time in their life, or even a period of history, but nostalgia for a lost future. One which technology or media had promised you, but never materialized. Take Ramona Xavier's 2011 album, Floral Shop, released under the pseudonym Macintosh Plus. She followed the Echo Jam's model of sampling slowed-down bits of music. The track Lisa Frank 420 is made up entirely of the Diana Ross song, It's Your Move. But slowed down just enough to sound like it's from a different universe. For me personally, it's an uncomfortable feeling. You have these elements of smooth jazz that are supposed to evoke a sense of leisure, but one from a distant past, one that now feels warped and twisted. The same goes for Floral Shop's album art, which looks like a slide from an 80s sales pitch, evoking high art and progress, but now, in retrospect, appears cold and humanless. This feeling can be explained by hauntology, a concept first conceived by philosopher Jacques Derrida, and then applied to music by Mark Fisher and Simon Reynolds. These writers argued that Because we live in a world where consumerism has quashed our ability to think about a radically different future, we are continuously haunted by the past and the lost futures that could have been. Therefore, it is with a sense of nostalgia we experience Floral Shop's rendering of 1980s corporate leisure, while also feeling a sense of dread at this dream's inability to materialize. And if my explanation here is getting a bit too heady, then let's just take a look at Vaporwave art. A lot of drawings evoke a sense of awe and wonder of an early digital age. Palm trees, sunsets, and cityscapes. But at the same time, there are often elements of fear and loneliness. A simultaneous embrace of the 80s and 90s corporate dream, while also an acknowledgement of its spiritual emptiness. After Floral Shop would come an explosion of Vaporwave albums, and each artist would have their own take on this equation. ESPRIT mined samples that evoked the dreamlike promise of digital technology. While Blank Banshee created a darker landscape with trap beats. Yunbei leaned heavily into the leisure side of things by sampling Japanese city pop. More on this later. And then you had St. Pepsi revitalizing McDonald's moon-faced entertainer. And what's really amusing is how everyone used a pseudonym, and nobody attached their own face to the recording. Vaporwave albums were presented as age-old artifacts, a promotional disc issued by some defunct East Asian corporation. The mystery was part of the fun, as you might stumble across one of these on YouTube at 3 AM and have no idea what you encounter. Though, by and large, I think everyone just found them on 4chan. Also, the fact that Vaporwave could be boiled down to a few key features, slowed down music, Japanese characters, those early 3D graphics, meant that thousands of poor imitations were soon flooding the market. When MTV rebranded in 2015, they took heavily from the Vaporwave aesthetic, marking a symbolic end to the movement. Suddenly, the corporations that Vaporwave aimed to satirize were reclaiming it for their own purposes. Fitting. So even though Vaporwave has crawled its way into the mainstream, now gracing t-shirts at your local mall, I think it deserves a place fairly deep on the iceberg. After all, it came deep from the underground. And I mean that literally, from people's basements. Okay guys, so as I was saying, this was part of a longer video on all the new music genres of the 2010s, which was published on our main channel, Bandsplaining. If you want to check that out, there's a link in the description. Okay, thanks for watching.